accepted this time.
A heron-marked sword. Let us see what is required to earn the heron blade on this side of the ocean.
Episode 1, A Taste of Solitude. After being unintentionally released by Moiraine and Rand, Ishmael, the Chosen Forsaken, meets with other high-ranking Dark friends to discuss their next steps. And interested to see what Rand is capable of, they choose to keep an eye on him in the future rather than hunt him down. Elsewhere, Moiraine recovers from her disconnection with the One Power, but still tries to learn as much information as she can about the Dark One's plan. After obtaining a mysterious poem written in blood from one of her informants, he also warns her that the powerful creatures called the Fades are hot on Moraine's heels. Additionally, Lan decides to stand by his duty as Moraine's warder, despite their connection being severed. At the White Tower, Egwene and Nynaeve have officially become novices in training, and for months spend their days doing chores and cleaning while also learning the basics of channeling. While Egwene challenges herself, Nynaeve struggles with controlling the One Power, so the Red Aja Liandrin suggests some personal tutoring. Although some of the other Aes Sedai are hesitant, as Liandrin has harmed novices with her teachings in the past. Meanwhile, Perrin and Loial join up with a group of Shai Naran trackers, led by Lord Ingatar, as they search for the magical Horn of Valir. According to legend, when the horn is used, it will summon the greatest warriors of all history, and could turn the tide of battle against the Dark One. During their adventures, Perrin starts to feel a mysterious power growing inside him, one that a new tracker, Elias, seems familiar with. Back at the White Tower, Nynaeve and Egwene continue their training, and one night, Liandrin ruthlessly confronts Nynaeve and uses the One Power to overwhelm her, encouraging her to fight back with anger and emotion, as it had helped Nynaeve channel in the past. Also, in a set of secret dungeons in the tower, Liandrin holds Mat prisoner at Moraine's request. Later that night, in the slums of Foregate, located on the outskirts of Cairhien, Rand has found safety and celebrates Beltane by lighting a lantern. While continuing her investigation, Moiraine eventually runs into a group of Fades, and although she fends them off for a while, they start to overpower her. Luckily, she is rescued in the nick of time by Lan, Varen, and the rest of her companions. Episode 2, Strangers and Friends. Near Foregate, Rand works as an orderly at an asylum while living with his girlfriend, an innkeeper named Selene. Although Rand truly cares for his patients, some of the other orderlies aren't as kind, and one night, in a vengeful act of justice, Rand beats up one of his abusive coworkers, leaving them incapacitated in an alley. Following the fight with the Fades, Moiraine plans to travel back to the White Tower, despite her exile and Lan's concern. And on their way to the tower, Varen deduces that Moiraine is tracking down the Dragon Reborn, and then pledges her unyielding allegiance. As Perrin and company continue their search, they come across a massacred town with a Fade nailed to a wall, and seeking shelter for the night, they settle down in a lakeside village and tuck in for a well-deserved night of rest. At the White Tower, Liandrin encourages Nynaeve to accept her personal tutorship, but to do so, she must complete a challenging set of trials called the Arches, so that she may be promoted from a novice to an accepted. In the dungeons below, Mat chisels away at a stone wall and eventually discovers another cell, occupied by a seer named Min, who he befriends. However, when Min has a vision of Mat stabbing Rand, she keeps it to herself. At the same time, Egwene meets and befriends a fellow novice named Elaine, who is the heir to a powerful nation called Andor. Later, Nynaeve follows Liandrin as she sneaks away outside of the tower and observes her caring for a sickly son in secret. Against her better judgment, Nynaeve accepts Liandrin's offer and is led to the start of the Arches trial. Meanwhile, Lan secretly steals the poem from Moiraine, but she ends up coming clean about the whole situation and admits that she and Rand accidentally unleashed Ishmael instead of killing the Dark One. Fearing that war and darkness is to come, Moiraine officially releases Lan from his duty as her warder, ordering him back to the White Tower and leaving him feeling abandoned and unappreciated. As Perrin and the rest of the trackers sleep, they awaken to find the village under attack by a group of invaders from the Shan-Chan Empire, and although they try their best to fight back, they are ultimately subdued and held captive, before meeting the invading party leader, Lady Suroth, who is accompanied by Ishmael. Back at the asylum, Rand receives new work orders and spends a shift in the gardens. There, he is surprised when he meets the false dragon, Logain. Episode 3. What Might Be. As Nynaeve prepares to undergo the Arches trials, she is warned about their mysterious and occasionally deadly nature, and that if she refuses to continue after the trials have begun, she will be permanently exiled from the White Tower. Despite the dangers, Nynaeve accepts and tackles the Arches trials one by one, each one more confusing and frightening than the next, throwing her through visions of childhood trauma, plague, death, and more. After passing the final test, Nynaeve is left slightly traumatized, and after refusing the promotion to accepted, she decides to abandon her training at the White Tower altogether. Saying farewell to Egwene, Nynaeve heads back home towards the Twin Rivers, but she runs into Lan, who offers his companionship. Accepting Lan's proposal with a kiss, she has a strange feeling of being in a dream, but pushes it aside. In reality, Nynaeve is still stuck in one of the otherworldly Arches trials, and her Aes Sedai superiors deem the test a failure, unable to free her from the dreamlike state. Meanwhile, Perrin and the rest of the villagers are formally introduced to Lady Suroth, who demands their fealty lest they face dire consequences. When one of the shy Naran trackers refuses to bend his knee, he is immediately executed, forcing Perrin and the rest to bow to Suroth's demands. During his shift in the garden, Rand tries to convince Logain to share his knowledge. However, after a long and frustrating mission to obtain some rare wine in return, Rand realizes that it's all a ruse, as Logain tells him that there is no possible way he could ever control the One Power. That evening, in the fit of a nightmare, Rand experiences a sudden surge in power and expels a burst of flames, accidentally burning down Celene's inn. Back at the White Tower, Egwene gets some support from Elaine when she learns about Nynaeve's fate, and Liandrin decides to let Mat go free, refusing to follow Moraine's orders any longer. But needing guidance, Mat also frees Min from her cell, and the pair decide to leave together. But before departing, Min makes a secret agreement with Liandrin. While being carted away from the conquered village in the Shan-Chan caravan, Perrin is interrogated by Ishmael, who encourages him to embrace that feeling growing inside him. Luckily, Perrin is rescued by Elias and a pack of wolves, but the rest of his friends remain in Ishmael's caravan. In Nynaeve's fantasy dream life, she and Lan have a child, and are reunited with their old friends. But when they are attacked and slain by Trollocs, she is overcome with the One Power, and spotting a portal back to the White Tower, she realizes the truth of her situation and rushes through, falling into Egwene's arms and having ultimately passed the final Arches trial. Episode 4. Daughter of the Night. In an ancient cave system, Ishmael performs a ritual and uses his powers to break a dark seal, unleashing yet another Forsaken into the world. Stopping at her childhood home near Cairhien, Moiraine seeks shelter with her younger sister, Anvir, but ignores her sibling as she remains preoccupied with the search for Rand. While inquiring with the locals about Rand's whereabouts, she even meets with Logain and promises him a quick death if he shares his knowledge of channeling with Rand. Following her promotion at the White Tower, Nynaeve struggles with the horrors she faced in the Arches, but she receives support from Egwene, who promises to stick by her side. Later, while talking with Liandrin, Nynaeve learns more about how the One Power slows down the aging of the Aes Sedai, and that they will outlive everyone they love. As an aside, she also shares news that Perrin's group has been captured by the Shan-Chan, but advises her against doing anything rash. After being rescued by Elias, Perrin learns that he is a wolf brother, a special type of human who can communicate through visions and naturally bond with wolves. And one wolf in particular, named Hopper, takes a particular liking to Perrin. As Moiraine struggles to find any sign of Rand, she eventually heads back home and finally talks with her sister. Surprisingly, she learns that Anvir's royal connections have granted her a network of spies, allowing her to easily track down Rand. Elsewhere, the Aes Sedai sister Alana and her warders discover the poem that Lan stole from Moiraine, and realize that it is a prophecy. The prophecy claims that another Forsaken called Lanfear, the daughter of the Night, has been unleashed into the world. Back at the White Tower, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine decide to go and rescue Perrin and their friends, but when they try to sneak out, they are ambushed by Liandrin, who knocks them unconscious with her powers. Elsewhere, Min and Mat settle down at an inn, but Min has a secret meeting with Ishamael in the attic. Revealing that Liandrin had been working with Ishamael, he orders Min to bring Mat to Cairhien. After enjoying a cliffside hike and a long nap, Rand and Selene are ambushed by a Fade, and Rand uses the One Power to kill it. Although Selene is surprised by Rand's ability to channel, she decides to stay with him. Later that night, as Selene and Rand prepare to get intimate, Moiraine rushes in and wounds Selene, explaining to a furious Rand that his girlfriend is actually Lanfear. Seeing no choice but to believe her, Rand joins Moiraine as they flee the city, knowing that Lanfear cannot be killed so easily. Episode 5. Damane. In the city of Falm, which has been occupied by the Shan-Chan Empire, Lady Surath arrives and is reprimanded and punished by her superior, the High Lord Turok, as he never approved her invasion of the lakeside village. And to ease the tension, Ishamael presents Turok with the Horn of Valir as a gift. Afterward, Lady Surath confirms her loyalty to the Dark as she plans to take down Turok and use the Shan-Chan army to aid Ishamael. Meanwhile, Lanfear recovers from her wounds and begins to hunt down Moiraine and Rand, and as they hurry through the forest, Moiraine finally admits to Rand that he never killed the Dark One, but instead, they unknowingly released Ishamael. She also explains that Lanfear is considered a master of manipulating the dream world, turning sleep into an inevitable trap. Elsewhere, Perrin realizes that Elias has been guiding him in the wrong direction, as they arrive back near the lakeside village. And when Perrin goes to investigate, he discovers that a group of White Cloaks, led by a man named Dane Bornhold, have occupied the village and have caged up several prisoners, including an Aiel named Avienda. Later that night, Perrin frees Avienda, but they are caught by the White Cloaks. However, after a quick battle and sparing Dane Bornhold's life, they manage to escape the village. And the next morning, Avienda explains that she is now duty-bound to Perrin's side, and along with the wolf Hopper, Perrin heads towards Falm to rescue his friends once again. At the White Tower, Varen Sedai becomes suspicious and begins to suspect that one of her fellow sisters has become loyal to the Dark. Now her hunch is fully justified, as Liandrin secretly uses the Ways to transport Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine to Lady Surath. However, when the novices try to escape, only Nynaeve and Elaine make it out, as Egwene is captured by the Shan-Chan. Later, when Nynaeve and Elaine try to sneak back into the city to rescue Egwene, they are forcibly taken into protective custody by a yellow Aja named Rima. In the royal palace of Falm, Ishamael meets Lanfear in his dreams, and while discussing their ambitions for the future, Ishamael begins to suspect that Lanfear might betray him if she sees an opportunity for personal gain. When he wakes up, Ishamael and Lady Surath are summoned by Lord Turok, and after some extra interrogation, they offer the Lord another gift, the captured Aes Sedai novice, Egwene. Having escaped Lanfear for the moment, Moiraine and Rand visit her home in Cairhien, and are surprised to see that her nephew Barthanes is there, preparing for his upcoming wedding. After seeking guidance from her sister, Moiraine decides to stop running and come up with a plan. Detailing the scheme to Rand, Moiraine explains that his relationship with Lanfear was likely substantial, as she kinda has a thing for falling for the Dragon Reborn. Leveraging this connection, Moiraine encourages that Rand falls asleep and confronts Lanfear in the dream world. Complying with the plan, Rand rests his eyes and falls asleep, only to find himself in a dream restrained to a giant wheel with Lanfear already waiting. Episode 6. Eyes Without Pity. On the outskirts of Falm, Egwene is locked in a prison called the Kennels and begins her training as a Damane. According to Shan-Chan cultures, all channelers of magics must be subservient to a superior called a Suldam. Overseen by a vicious Suldam named Rena, Egwene is unable to escape or harm her captor, as she is restrained with a special collar called an Adam. In the palace, Ingitar and Loial plan to steal the Horn of Valir and escape, but wait for the right moment. Meanwhile, Nynaeve and Elaine explain to Rima that Liandrin has betrayed the Aes Sedai, and they refuse to leave the city without Egwene. Back in Rand's dream, Lanfear releases him from the wheel and claims that she has been protecting him from Ishamael, and that they can work together towards a common goal, but only if Rand abandons Moiraine. Ultimately, he accepts, leaving Moiraine behind, and in a later dream, Lanfear shows Rand that Egwene is being held captive in Falme, earning a tiny bit of trust back. That night, Mat and Min also arrive in Cairhien, and while asleep, Ishamael invades Min's dreams. Continuing to promise to remove her cursed visions, he orders her to make sure that Mat leaves the city with Rand. Back near the White Tower, Liandrin goes to visit her critically ill son, but she is confronted by Lanfear. In a casual act of cruelty, Lanfear kills the vulnerable man, completely breaking Liandrin's spirit. Elsewhere, when Alana and her warders catch Lan trying to escape in the middle of the night, they force him to admit that he is seeking Siuan Sanche, the leader of the Aes Sedai, to inform her that Moiraine has found the Dragon Reborn. Fortunately, Alana decides to help in this effort, successfully getting the information to Siuan. Following yet another lackluster meeting with Logain at the asylum, Rand runs into Mat on the streets of Cairhien, and the pair embrace and catch up on their adventures after months apart. When Mat learns about Egwene's capture, he agrees to join Rand on a journey to Falme. Unfortunately, when he mentions this to Min, she tells him about the vision she had of Mat killing Rand. Although Mat decides to stay behind, Rand doesn't get very far either, as he is prevented from leaving the city by Alana, Lan, and her warders. And not long after, Siuan Sanche also arrives with over a dozen other Aes Sedai, and calls for an audience with Moiraine. In Falme, Rima and the novices use magic to try and decipher an Adam collar, but Nynaeve's lack of control winds up alerting the Shan-Chan soldiers. As the soldiers come bearing down, Rima tries to fight them off with her warder, Basan, but he is killed and she is taken captive. At the same time, Egwene is continuously tortured in the kennels as Rena forces her to accept her position as a Daemone. And after days of distress, Egwene finally submits and is left as a sobbing mess on the cell floor. Episode 7, Daes Daemar. 20 years in the past, Siuan and Moiraine discuss their relationship and celebrate the end of the war before meeting with their superior, Gitara. When Gitara is suddenly overcome with a harrowing vision of the birth of the Dragon Reborn, she tells the pair that they must find the dragon and keep them safe before she dies in their arms. In the present, Siuan meets with Moiraine and demands a meeting with Rand. Following Aes Sedai's protocol, Siuan decides to imprison Rand and shield him from channeling, despite Moraine's wishes. At the same time, Liandrin makes a trip to Moraine's house and visits Barthanes, revealing that he too is a dark friend. When Liandrin orders Barthanes to kill Moiraine, Annavir overhears the plot and is horrified to learn the truth about her son. Meanwhile, Mat is ambushed by Lanfear, who transports him to Falme, where Ishamael awaits. As Ishamael brews up a pot of psychoactive tea, Mat is convinced to take a drink, overwhelming him with horrifying hallucinations of murder and death. Recovering from the experience, Ishamael tells Mat that he has witnessed his true nature and encourages him to embrace the darkness. Without the protection of Rima, Nynaeve and Elaine continue their search for Egwene, but coincidentally run into Loial on the streets of Falme, who tells them that she is being held in the kennels, which only the Soldam can enter. Using a spare Adam, the pair ambush and restrain a Soldam, getting them one step closer to rescuing Egwene. As Perrin and company continue towards Falme through the desert, they meet a few other Aiel warriors, and after Aviendha atones for a mistake through a ritualistic beating, they join the party on their journey. Using the dream world to his advantage, Rand falls asleep and contacts Lanfear, who agrees to help him escape. Launching a brutal solo attack on Cairhien, she draws the attention of Siuan and the other Aes Sedai, long enough for Rand to be freed by Varin, Alana, and others. At the same time, Anvier tricks Barthanes and locks him in a cell, exposing his identity as a Dark Friend to the authorities. While fleeing Cairhien, Rand uses his channeling powers to see that Moiraine has not been cut off from the One Power, but was instead shielded by Ishmael. Using his power, Rand releases the shielding, allowing Moiraine to access the One Power and open a portal to escape. Unfortunately, Siuan intervenes and is partially successful in stopping them, but when Lanfear arrives, she easily subdues the Aes Sedai leader. As her once lover lies bloody on the ground, Moiraine leaves Siuan behind, joining Lanfear, Rand, and Lan as they step through the portal and enter the Ways. Episode 8: What Was Meant to Be. Flashing back 3,000 years into the past, Lews Therin, the Dragon Reborn, prepares to banish Ishmael for betraying him and becoming loyal to the Dark One. Despite their past friendship, he seals Ishmael away, refusing him the release of death. In the present day, as everyone makes their way towards Falme, a climactic battle is ready to erupt. While Perrin approaches Falme with his party and orders the wolf Hopper to stay behind, Dane Bornhald and his father Jeffrem prepare to invade the city with a White Cloak army and push out the Seanchan. While in the Ways, Lanfear opens a portal and pushes Moiraine and Lan out, instantly teleporting herself and Rand to the palace instead. As Moiraine and Lan walk across a seemingly endless shoreline, he asks her to use the One Power and reconnect them once again, as Lan yearns to protect her, and she agrees. After walking for some time, Moiraine sees Falme in the distance, and they quicken their step. As the White Cloaks launch their assault and rush through the gates, Rhenna continues to torment Egwene and orders her to help fight back against the army. Unfortunately, Nynaeve and Elaine's rescue goes sideways when their captured Saldam is shot and killed by an archer, who subsequently wounds Elaine. In the palace, Ishmael continues to pressure Mat by having Padden Fane deliver the cursed dagger of Shadar Logoth. Instead of picking it up, he smartly crafts it into a spear and uses the powerful weapon to escape. Meanwhile, Ishmael also orders Lady Suroth to take her strongest Daminae and put them on ships as a backup plan for his inevitable showdown with Rand. Not one to waste time, Rand travels to the palace courtyard and slays Lord Turok and his royal guards without a second thought, exacting partial revenge for his crimes. When Perrin and his group arrive in the city under siege, they luckily run into Ingatar and Loial, who have stolen the Horn of Valir. As they decide that they need to rescue Egwene, they are ambushed by a squad of Seanchan soldiers, and Ingtar is killed in the ensuing battle. While the White Cloaks continue their assault, Egwene and other Daminaes are sent to a defense tower to fight back, but it is attacked by catapults, killing almost everyone. However, Egwene and Rhenna survive, and using a spare Adom collar, Egwene tortures Rhenna into freeing her, before letting her captor choke to death. When Rand arrives at the tower to rescue his long-lost friend, he is confronted by Ishmael, who knocks Egwene unconscious and uses Suroth's Daminae to subdue and shield Rand. In the streets below, chaos erupts as Perrin and his party fight off even more attackers. While Mat uses his spear to open the box containing the Horn of Valir and rushes off to deliver it to Rand, the White Cloak, Emond Valda, recognizes Perrin and tries to kill him. Although Hopper comes to his aid, the loyal wolf is slain by Jeffram, causing Perrin to kill him in retribution. This is witnessed by Dane, who swears vengeance before he retreats. When Mat gets cornered by soldiers, he decides to blow the Horn of Valir, summoning the great heroes of the Horn, and leads them directly into battle. Back on the ruined defense tower, Mat arrives and tries to kill Ishmael, but gravely injures Rand by accident. Luckily, Egwene snaps back to action and fends off Ishmael's attacks with her overwhelming power. After working their way through the pandemonium, Perrin, Nynaeve, and Elaine also arrive at the tower, and Elaine heals Rand before he succumbs to his wound. On the shoreline, Moiraine notices Lady Sarath's fleet and decides to destroy it, killing the Dominé and freeing Rand from the shielding. With his powers restored, Rand charges his legendary blade with the One Power and strikes down Ishamael, who finally welcomes death with open arms. Fulfilling the prophecy, Moiraine unleashes a massive dragon made out of fire towards the tower, proclaiming the return of the Dragon Reborn. As the 6 channelers look down from their peak, the population celebrates their glorious victory. However, in the palace, Lanfear is confronted by another Forsaken, Moiraine, who reveals that Ishamael released the rest of the Forsaken in anticipation of Lanfear's betrayal. Making her ominous intent clear, Moiraine warns Lanfear to stay away from the champion channelers, claiming that they now belong to the dark. If you like what you just saw, consider sharing it or maybe drop a like, and if you want to see more recaps on the latest and greatest TV shows, consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a new video. I appreciate everyone who watched. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end. For now, BingeBot is logging off.